Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I am your host once again, Dan Thornton. Hey, want to thank you all for joining us here today. Lions Talk Live. I get the Michigan game, Michigan versus Ohio State's going on right now. I want to get over to you though as quick as I could. I just got done coaching myself. Anybody who probably doesn't know, let me bring you up to speed real quick before we get to our guest, Johnny Gas Sports. There's a shout out to you. We'll say an hour ago, the Detroit Lions issued a statement that Frank the Tank Ragnow would not be able to return because of a grade 3 hamstring injury. If you're not a medical professional, you've never been into coaching or whatever else it may be, I'm going to tell you this. There is, in my opinion, a 0.000 minus about 1,000 points on top of that chance that Frank Ragnow somehow returned to the Detroit Lions, came back and was blissfully unaware he had a complete tear of the muscle, of the hamstring, of everything with it. Johnny Gaz, you see the statement from the Lions about Frank Ragnow. What does this say to you?
God, buddy, it's such a heartbreaking news day for me. I mean, to get that news on top of everything that we just went through on Thanksgiving Day, and it's hard. But like you said, I have a really hard time imagining that Frank Ragnow knows nothing about a torn hamstring. And for them to have conversations, to lead to the Lions, to tell fans, tell the media, to broadcast it out there to the world that Frank Ragnow is unretiring, that he's coming back to the Lions was so premature. That is bogus to me, man. I don't know. I'm not trying to speculate or try to point fingers necessarily in one direction just yet. I can't do that, but I'll say this. As a Lions fan my entire life, this is one of the true letdowns that I've had in my fandom. I mean, the season is what it is. We're still living through a good era of Lions football. I'm not trying to make more of this than what it is. But for this story today, for Frank Ragnow, this is awful, man. And I gotta ask a lot of questions about where the Lions came from with this. Where are you at with this, man?
So here's my thought. I do think that, something's up here. Were they doing it to rally the troops, get everybody in the fan base, maybe the team fired up, Ford Field fired up? It's possible. They also may have known they were just doing this to get some energy momentum. Is it possible? I guess we have to ask, did Frank Ragnow not tell them about it, saying, hey, nobody's going to notice? But he's been in the league for, we'll just say, a decade. He's been through these physicals. He knows nothing gets missed. It may be going back about 15 or so years ago. I'm not sure if I can even remember the kid's name. He was from Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I reside, and I've coached at Kalamazoo Central. He was a running back for the Maroon Giants. Shout out. And then got traded to the Detroit Lions. Because he got traded, a physical was put on, and they found basically brain cancer in him. He had to retire from the NFL. Where I'm going with this is those physicals are that intense. Nothing gets missed. The team, the organization knows they're going to make a huge financial commitment to whatever the player is, whoever they are, and they don't want to leave anything to chance. Do you think, knowing that, Johnny Gaz, that, best guess is all we can do right now? Do you think Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, the Lions organization lied to the fan base about Ragnow? Or do you think Ragnow tried to hide it and say, hey, I'm going to be able to fool a bunch of medical staffs?
Yeah, it's my honest first opinion on this was, okay, either because the Lions lost and things are sort of going a little south, they're not going to come out and just say Frank Ragnow decided not to join the team, because that makes Frank Ragnow look bad. It makes the whole organization look bad. So maybe they concoct this story of failed physical, so it kind of puts him off the hook, kind of puts the organization more as the bad guy, and allows him to make the decision whether or not he wants to come back for 2026. So that's my honest first opinion. But again, a grade 3 to come out and then say grade 3, like, it's one thing, like if it's like a hammy issue or he's got, we're a little worried about a heart murmur. I don't know, right. We just want to play it safe. They could have went so many different ways with this medically. And so to go grade 3 hamstring tells me probably what you said. I think Ragnow tried to hide it a little bit, knew he had some issues, but thought, I could skate by, or they'll let me get by because they need it so bad. And like you said, these medical things, they don't miss. They're not going to miss that. And they caught it, and now maybe they're being honest. So I think you could swing this a couple ways, bud.
Yeah, I want to say the running back, by the way, that I was referring to for the Lions, who is from Kalamazoo. I want to say his last name's Jennings, but don't hold me to that. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been, like I said, 10 or 15 years ago. Lions, every fan's going to say this right now. Nothing's going their way. They lost the game. They didn't get some calls. Some plays weren't there to be had. People got hurt. Now you get the Ragnow news. Where do they go from here to try to regain composure and potentially make a playoff push?
Dan, that's the big question. And I put out content before this Ragnow news hit today saying the Lions season was slipping away. And I would have said that with Ragnow coming back. So like, this doesn't change my opinion. I love this team. And I think, again, they can set themselves up for the future very, very well. So this is not a blowing panic mode take, but I just think that right now their offensive line is not good enough to compete with the playoff teams. And their defensive pass rush clearly is not good enough to compete to win a Super Bowl. And if you don't have those factors, you cannot win. So I'm sorry to say this, Lions fans, you can hate me if you want, but I'm keeping it real. They don't have enough on both lines to put this thing back into shape. And that would have been possibly even with Ragnow.
If we could all be revisionists here, go back to the preseason before the season began, training camp, whatever, maybe the draft, free agency. What moves do you think ultimately killed the Lions, or lack of moves? Is there anything that jumps to your mind? Hey, I would have drafted this guy, signed this free agent, made that trade going into the trade deadline.
Yeah, again, it's like hindsight's 2020, and I
Right.
was good with their roster when they were going into the season. So I'm not going to sit here and play the game that I was right, because I wasn't. But the truth is, now if I could do it again, if I was Brad Holmes, they need another edge rusher. They need more pressure on the defensive line. So I think they've failed multiple off seasons over not making a move. They've used third-round picks. They got the Tesla thing, which I like the player, but it's like you could have parlayed that into something else. You could have drafted who could be starting on your defensive line right now with some of those picks. So again, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily say one player, because I think there were multiple opportunities over 23, 24, 25 to add to this mix. And Brad Holmes has sat pat and said, nope, we're going to draft, we're going to develop, and we're going to pay. And right now they're paying for it right now. I'm not saying it can't still work long-term, or next year things can turn, but that's the mistake. I think they needed another edge rusher.
With 5 games left, let's Scooby do this. If Ragnow does want to return, according to Taylor Decker, I don't know if you saw the interview. I want to say it was after this Thanksgiving Day game. Said, hey, he had been in communication with Ragnow since they're very good friends, apparently best friends for a long time. Was aware that he was trying to make a comeback, etc. Do you think he returns to the team next year?
That's another huge question, Dan. That's great. I right now, as I sit here today, I think he does return. I think that was really the bigger plan, really, because even before the Thanksgiving Day game, I have to imagine they knew where they're at with their offensive line. So if they couldn't rush him back into the mix, I just don't think it was in the cards. So I really think it was more of a long-term play, so that maybe they can sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal and start to build behind him, right? I think he was coming back to sort of help the organization. He knew he sort of kind of left them on their toes this offseason. He clearly had some medical things. I think there was some family issues that we don't need to get into today that was going on in the background. He's now back in the mix so that he can help groom the offensive line, work with Hank Fraley, work with the 2 guards, and whoever they end up drafting, hopefully this offseason, to be the center of the future.
All right, let's get everybody out of here, get back to the game or whatever you're doing your respective day. Johnny Gaz, I want to thank you for making a little time out of your day to join us. Why don't you go ahead and give yourself a shout out to everybody where they can find you, support you, your great content, and all you do.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, at Johnny Gas Sports, YouTube, Facebook, all of your socials, free content daily, just trying to hit on all the big topics, trying to stay positive with this season and look at the big picture. But that's really it. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for letting me talk the big news today. And, whoever you're rooting for today, go blue or go red.
All right, go USC. Anyways, all right, guys, get out of here. If there's breaking news, I'll get it over to you as soon as possible. If you would be so kind, before checking out, hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit all the buttons. Be a good human being. Do something kind for somebody you don't know. See you all on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody. All right, where I got that button.